Welcome back. It's been a while. I think 2024 was the last time I really gave any sort of update. But I'm back now, and the plan is to get this car ready to go for the 2027 season. After we finished Big White Rally in 2024, I had some grand ambitions to modify a lot of the car to be more competitive, and that required a lot of upgrades and modifications to make that happen. Initially, I had some big ambitions to do double-wishbone suspension all throughout the car and got pretty close to finalizing the design and decided to scrap it just kind of out of complexity. And there were some weight penalties associated with it, with the amount of links and hardware and everything required that would be able to support that, especially in the front of the car where weight is kind of at a premium right now. So scrap that. Things just kind of sat for the last year or so. But it's August 2026 now, and it's time for me to get back at it. So I'd say there's probably 3 priority efforts going on right now with the car. The first is still suspension. Stick with the McPherson layout, but do long travel and widen the track quite a bit. The next to kind of support that and also to add some upgrades is Aero. So you'll see some of the changes, especially in regards to a new wing. A lot of the underbody can be kind of made into somewhat of a flat floor and, help smooth out the airflow that's going on underneath the car. And that's one of the things that I had always felt with this car before, especially at high speeds where the car would kind of start to lift. And that's not what you want. And that doesn't feel very comforting when you're going 120 miles per hour on dirt. So Aero is definitely a part of it, mostly just to kind of keep the car feeling planted. And then the third kind of effort to all this is just fixing up the chassis and doing some of the things that I had always wanted to do that I didn't do when I first bought the shell. So spending a lot of time on all of that, and have actually made quite a bit of progress in the year prior in 2025. But again, there's a lot still to do. So with the plan going into 2027, I really hope to have this car back on the stages by spring. So probably looking March or April that this car will be back together and at least being able to do some testing and figure out how things go. So I do want to give you a general overview of the car, what's going on, and where the direction is going right now. So let's do a quick little walk around and I will show you what I'm doing. So right now, as you can see, the car is completely stripped down to a bare shell. I've just got it on some chassis stands so that it's just kind of freestanding and I have access to a lot of stuff. So I tore it down beginning of 2025 and then kind of started stripping a lot of the paint and getting everything out of the way and figuring out what needs to be fixed, because there's a lot of like random holes and cracks and things like that that needs to get repaired. So I want to get access to that. I stripped most of this by hand and then started doing it with a little bit of sandblasting and whatnot, but no, still not quite all the way there. And I think what I'm going to do in a week or two is actually take the chassis out and give it to somebody to fully sandblast, because I didn't have a good compressor set up to do this continuously and it was making a mess. And even though I got a lot of it done, there's still the entire underside of the car that I would like to have stripped so we can get it repainted and make things nice. And then when I was talking about some of the chassis issues, you can kind of see here with like these like spot welds that I had removed, I kind of went a little too deep and actually punctured through the body of the car, and you can kind of see some air gaps. So I want to go back through and kind of plug all those up. And then with the setup that we had on the transmission and the Ferrari motor, it kind of forced the location of the drive shaft up a little bit, just because of the angle that the engine had to sit and then its relationship with the transmission. So this was initially just all hammered out with a big hammer, and it was pretty messy and was actually starting to crack. So I decided to cut out everything there, and I'm in the process of just kind of raising that tunnel. a little bit. So that's what this little paper template is for part of it. And then I also cut the corners out so that I have a little bit of room for the exhaust to make that 90-degree bend. If you remember on this car, it has some side exits that come out there. So it makes this 90-degree bend right there. And it was kind of low, it was picking up a lot of rocks and getting pretty destroyed. So I just wanted to make a little bit of clearance so I can rise it up a little bit. And the main problem there was where the drive shaft was. So I mostly wanted to just get some space around there. Now for the suspension, I also had to do quite a bit of surgery over here on the back. So as you can see, I cut out a huge amount of the rear arch over here, and also kind of cut out at an angle on the back side too, because that always just gets hammered, and I figured I would just get it out of the way and make some space for everything there. So had to do that on both sides. On the other side, I'm a little bit at a point where I need to make a decision on whether or not I want to retain the stock fuel tank and keep the fuel filler neck in its spot right here, or if I'm going to switch over to a fuel cell, and then I'm just going to cover this all up and not have it exist anymore. And that's most likely the direction that's going to happen, because the subframe that's going to be going into the back here is going to be a lot larger, and the OEM fuel tank is going to interfere. So most likely there's going to be a fuel cell going into the car, and that's probably just going to end up sitting right in this location here like usual. So that's what the plan most likely. And then just kind of removing some other bits that probably just aren't necessary, like this little piece of the cowl, just don't need it. And it's kind of ugly from when we put the cage in way back when. That's not very pretty. So I might just remove that, because the mounting points for the wiper motors and stuff is kind of hard pointed off of the strut tower here. And then this piece is strong enough, even if I just cut it right there, it'll hold it up, no problem. All right. Other suspension stuff. So to accommodate the longer travel that I'm going for, I'm not going to completely cut out the strut towers, but I am going to be modifying them with a little bit of a different turret that's going to push it back and a little bit higher. I just need that to be able to fit the new suspension that's going in. I'll talk about that in a future video. And then also with the wider track, it requires a wider body to cover the wheels. So I designed up, and this is the plug for the molds that I'm going to be making for the wide body. And as you can tell, it's pretty much a Rally 2 style wide body looking thing. Now it only gives about 60 millimeters wider per side, which is still pretty substantial. And it really just looks so big because the way that this body shape is, it kind of comes out, I'd probably say, I don't know, probably down to about here or so on the OEM fenders. So it's really that 60 millimeters or so that's actually wider, but it looks huge just because of the shape. So I still need to design the accompanying side skirts and the rear quarter panel extensions. And I don't know if I'm going to make molds for those necessarily. It might just end up being a 3D printed shape that I throw on there and scan it, or do something. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm kind of making my ambitions a little bit more realistic. As much as I want to make everything out of carbon fiber and be perfect and all that sort of stuff, I'm really, really missing racing the car. So I want to be able to get that going. But that being said, there's still lots of cool things that I'm working on, and I really do want to make this car super, super cool and be something very different, more so than it already was with the Ferrari motor. So the Ferrari motor is staying. That's still perfectly healthy. It's a great motor still, sticking with the Subaru 6-speed transmission, all that sort of stuff. So nothing like that is really changing, but I am going to be optimizing some of the stuff for it. The airflow for the radiator, I'm going to improve the ducting for that. So that's going to be a little bit more efficient and can do its job better, and lightening some things as well. So, so it's just like pulleys and hardware and the way things are kind of configured right now, and just trying to optimize that. We'll be doing a little bit more 3D printing to make some components that are going to be a little bit lighter, and yeah, it should be pretty fun. I will be documenting most of this for the next however long it takes, until March, April, of the progress. Initially, before, I thought I was going to be able to make this happen within a year and I was going to do this big grand surprise, but I don't think that's realistic, and it's really hard to make content when you're trying to make everything secret. So I'm going to be working on that. I kind of mentioned 3D printing a little bit. So just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that I've been having to 3D print, a lot of it has to do with the mold. So this right here is a mold for a lower part of the structure of the rear spoiler. Kind of similar in shape to what goes on with the old WRC replica wing that I had, but that wing was getting so trashed. I definitely had to make a new one. So this is all 3D printed. Then I glue it together and then spray it with some Duratec primer. And right now I'm in the process of sanding it smooth and going to get that polished up so I can make a little carbon fiber part for it. And that's, again, for the rear wing. With all these molds and stuff, again, like this part of the plug, this extension, that's all 3D printed and glued on there. And I think the last time I checked on my printer, it had like 800 hours, and that's all just been for 3D printed stuff. Here you can see one of the other fender that's kind of in progress, just sanding it nice and smooth and trying to get all the shape nice and continuous. And it takes a lot of body filler and a lot of sanding, which I really don't like doing, but it's kind of necessary. But you can see how it looks off of the old fender. A little bit of a quirky shape, I guess. I kind of like that little arch that's kind of a little bit more towards the rear. It just looked kind of cool. A little bit of inspiration from the Skoda Rally 2, I guess, and just making it work with the Subaru fender. And so that's kind of how much higher the arch is compared to the stock fender, and just kind of how it looks. So the actual fender, once I make it, won't have this portion in there. This is just how I made the plug. And yeah, not a whole lot to it, but yeah, cutting a lot of stuff out. I think for the front suspension, a lot of this is going to have to go away because I need to get the rear compression arm somewhere up around this area here and further back to get the geometry that I'm looking to do. So still a lot of work to come, but I think once those parts come in and I can see exactly where it all really needs to be, even though I'm doing a lot of it in CAD, it's one thing to see it on a computer and another thing to do it in reality. So it'll be nice to see, and I think that will start to speed some things up. But yeah, that's just the general update. The car's not gone. This project hasn't died. Everything is still going, and we'll be back on the stages here pretty soon. So lots of updates to come. I'll do these videos in probably a little bit more of a focused format, talk about one thing at a time as I get things done and I'm working on things, and kind of show you what it's like. But for now, I just wanted to let you know that the project is back alive and we're going to be back on the stages soon. So thanks. See ya.